Hey, I'm Jess Hugo, personal trainer and nutritionist, and I am here to show you that life is messy, but we're doing it anyway. Welcome to Doing It Anyway, the podcast for building the life that you want without burning out. Let's get into it. These are the basics that I wish I knew earlier when it came to calories, nutrition, tracking, all of the things that I actually did not learn until during my weight loss journey, and that is far too late in my opinion. I think that we should be teaching it at school, in primary school. Don't get me wrong, we did obviously learn about like the different charts, but I never realized how important it was to understand what we were actually consuming and looking at the back of the label. And I think as research progresses and we get older and more women's health issues are coming out and more different like things like thoughts and feelings against how things have been processed, and whilst Australia does have one of the best laws when it comes to what we are actually consuming, there still is a lot of processed shit out there that really fucks with you. There's a lot of shit that is not ideal for how we should feel, but that is also overwhelming. So I really just want to start with like actually talking calories, macros, because some of us are so new to it, which is okay. So I'm starting from the basics. Literally the calories is what is inside the food on the back of the label. What can be really, really confusing is that in Australia, we do our labels by kilojoules, not calories. Like you might see in America, it's calories, which would be so much easier, but we do kilojoules. So sometimes when you're really new to this, you read the back of the label and you're like, whoa, this is like 500 calories, but that actually might just be 500 kilojoules. So working out kilojoules in the supermarket, you literally can write what the kilojoules was. So if that's 500, and then you write divided 4.2. That is the ultimate hack. No more Googling what the calories are in things when your service isn't working in the middle of Woolworths. You literally just pull out your calculator, write in the kilojoules divided by 4.2, and that gives you the calorie amount. Now, I don't like to say there's any perfect amount of calories for any meal or snack or anything like that, because everyone has individual needs. But what I like to go for when I'm doing main meals is around 400 to 500, maybe even 600 calories, depending on the phase I'm in. I love to say that's always a bit of like a safe number, because it helps structure our day of like, if we're at, between the 4 to 6, breakfast, lunch and dinner, the top end of that would be 1.6-ish, and then to like 1.8, and so a lot of women's maintenance is around 2.5. Just depends, again, of course, on like your height and your weight and how active you are and all of the things. But I love to kind of just like base things around those numbers. It makes it a lot easier. But you will find that, say your favorite sweet treat is like a donut, you'll find some donuts will be like 400 calories, and then you'll be like, oh, that is like my whole meal. And whilst there's nothing right or wrong about that, it's really great to just be across. And sometimes what women always say to me is, oh, now I can actually see why I was gaining the weight, and whilst I wasn't necessarily like losing it when I was trying, because I didn't really understand the basics of nutrition. And when I talk about that as well, like the breakdown of protein, carbs and fats is so confusing for so many of us. So carbs is what we need: energy, fuel, brain power. It's what we use for our pre-workouts. We really want to make sure our pre-workouts are carb heavy, not necessarily protein heavy. And I understand the confusion around this, because I feel like everywhere online it's like high protein, and you're like, oh, okay, so I want to do a workout, I need high protein, but we actually need the protein after. So protein is like the meat sources, dairy, like super kind of like fresh whole food vibes, rather than looking for like a shake or a bar. And whilst I say that, do what you got to do. If you're on the go, sure. If you're running out of time and you just are trying to get a quick, easy option, sure. But we don't want to do that. It's like supplementation, right? We don't need to go supplement collagen when we're already producing collagen in our body. It's a supplement, right? So we're supplementing the fact that we can't get it in whole foods, or we might not be able to like, say you just like don't produce a lot naturally, then we go supplementation. So you don't need to go supplement protein with powders if you have the opportunity to eat it in food. It's the same with things like creatine. We already produce it naturally. And I always suggest that if you want to go down that route, make sure that you are already consistently doing everything, like your sessions and your steps and everything, before you just start putting creatine in, because nothing is going to happen. It's the same as potentially jumping into a deficit because you aren't happy with your body, but we're not going to be able to succeed in that deficit because you're going over your food constantly, because you're having food noise, you're unhappy. Like they're like building blocks, and we have to build. We can't just jump from different extremes. So that's really like the basic kind of explanation of calories and macros. And I completely get why everyone feels confused around it, because even the health star ratings, we go in and we're like, oh, this says it's a 5-star health star rating, it must be really, really good. But health star ratings are against competitors in the industry, and the standards around that are very wishy-washy in terms of when you think of it compared to calories and macros. The health star rating doesn't actually go into what ingredients are in there, what the calories are, what the macros are. The health star rating is literally like, how good is my product compared to competitors in the industry, and the Australian standards and things like that. So really being across that as well. If you are turning the back on a packet and the ingredient list is like 50 plus ingredients long, I would be putting that back, because it is just so overwhelming and so consuming, so processed that you're like, I don't even know if I want to consume this, because there's so many things that went into that, and it's a lot. And this is also how we kind of get stung as well, because, and I know this is contradicting, but I'm kind of wanting to talk about the different things and like then clear the air, if that makes sense. But so we're like, okay, cool, I'll eat really healthy, I'll eat whole foods, but we can still gain weight eating really healthily. The number one thing I hear is, I've been eating so healthy and I don't understand why I am not losing weight. You can overeat healthy food. I am breaking up the episode to talk about how 50% of you are not subscribed to the podcast. If you've been getting any kind of value, tips, tricks, implementing anything, I would love if you could follow along. It really helps me help you bring on bigger guests and just create more content around everything you're needing to build your dream life. So if you haven't already, take a second, follow along on whatever platform you're listening to, and let's get back to the podcast. We can be eating the most healthy foods every single day, but if we're eating too much of them, we are going to gain weight. Even if you haven't had one little piece of sugar, even if you haven't had one little sweet treat, we're still going to gain weight. So yes, you can overeat salads. Yes, you can overeat the most, rich whole foods ever. Like, yes, we can overeat that and overconsume that, and that's why we gain weight. Protein really, really matters though when we talk through food and whole foods, because it changes how our body looks, because it helps us repair that muscle. So when we are strength training, and this is why strength training is so important as well, we are essentially like breaking down that muscle and like tearing the muscle. We then repair that with protein and obviously balanced meals afterwards. You don't want to just like finish at the gym and have some steak. You want to have steak with pasta, with veg in there. Like, you want to have a mixture of everything. You don't want to just have the protein, but we want it to make sure that it is at least 30 grams of protein, making sure that we get that high amount. Something that is very like common as well is like, we can only absorb 30 grams of protein. Not true. We can absorb as much as our body needs, and then we kind of just like literally pee out the rest. We can't tell how much our body needs though. Our body knows how much we need. So I always just like to go for minimum 30 grams. If I have more, perfect. If I have less, where can I pick it up a bit later in another meal? But we just want to really prioritize that 30 grams, not to mention how much that helps with us feeling satiated as well. A lot of girls that I've changed their meals from being super carb heavy to carb balanced with protein have been like, I'm actually snacking less because I'm so satisfied with how high protein I'm eating. And it's not high protein to the point of constipation. It's high protein to the point of, I don't feel like I'm constantly starving and looking for my next meal and snack. And that's why protein really, really matters, because it helps us regulate our hormones as well and not feel so stressed about food. Because there's nothing worse than when you're feeling really stressed. A lot of us are emotional eaters. I used to be very much as well. It's something that, because I don't think it's something you always overcome, and I have kind of mentioned this before, it's something that I can tell now when I feel reactive and want to eat to an emotion, if that makes sense. Whereas before I couldn't tell, and the comfort was food. So just know there is hope on the other side if you are in the midst of struggling with all of that at the moment. But with emotional eating, or binge eating, or having a bit of a binge eating moment, is if we're eating enough during the day and we're feeling satisfied with protein and things like that, we are less likely to get into that emotional eating state and binging state, because we have eaten so good during the day that we actually are quite satisfied and we don't feel the need to go crazy. I found when I wouldn't have much of a routine, or I didn't have confidence in my choices, I would wake up, eat something that I knew wasn't ideal for breakfast, then I would still be really hungry throughout the day. I'd feel really off. Everything would just feel like scattered and not structured. And that is when I would go overboard and eat all the snacks and eat all the foods and really like blow out. And that is really from the all or nothing mindset as well, because we get stuck in this thing of like, well, I started the day really bad, so I'm just going to keep going bad because I've already stuffed up. When reality is you haven't. You can turn it around. It's really your mindset around it. And that kind of flows into the weekends and things as well, because how often do you have an amazing Monday to Thursday / Friday, and then on the weekend you go absolutely insane because you might have gone out for breakfast, and then you think you've undone all your hard work. But reality is, just because you went out for breakfast doesn't mean anything. Can we use our breakfast to fuel a workout? If we've done all our workouts for a week, can we have a really wholesome walk and just use the energy, even not to walk, but to clean the house, to declutter our space, just using that energy from the food and viewing food as energy and a fuel source to complete tasks, get things done, get moving. Because there's nothing worse than when you go out for a big breakfast and then you just like lay down in bed and you're feeling really lethargic and down, and then suddenly you're hungry again, and it's like a bit of a mind fuck, right? Because you're like, I'm not hungry, but it's because you're bored eating and your body's responding in a weird way because we haven't actually used those foods. So really thinking about, cool, this is the protein, this is the carb, this is the fat, this is the energy. Looking at your plate and not necessarily seeing a number of calories, but like, do I have my fats? Do I have my carbs? Do I have my protein? Do I have like my fruit, veg, whatever the meal might be? Like, am I hitting my fiber? Things like that. That is the first place you should be viewing things from, rather than calories, because yes, it's calories in, calories out. So many of us will be like, oh, well, I'm still within my calories. Yeah, but you're eating really shit. So it's not actually making your body change shape. It's not actually helping you in the long run because it's really fucking with your head. It's not making you feel satiated. So really being across, what are we consuming and how are we viewing the foods on our plate? Are we looking for numbers, or are we looking for health, or are we looking for, to hit our macros and our micros? Because this is as well like why so many of us can be deficient in things, because we're like, oh, well, a cheeseburger meal is the same calories as like steak and veg. Okay, maybe. Well, like with a pasta or something as well. Okay, maybe, but you're going to get so many more nutrients from the steak and veg if you need the cheeseburger meal because you're like really craving it. Did we need the whole meal, or could we just got the cheeseburger? Because like, to me, I'm the number one hater of like fries and hot chips. Like, for personally, I don't care if you eat them, whatever, but I'm like, they are the least satisfying thing ever. And there's nothing worse. I feel like you can't find a good hot chip. I'm going on a tangent, but I feel like you cannot find a good hot chip these days, apart from Frango's, which they don't even have like in half the states. So that's insane. But you can't find a good hot chip. So then you eat this hot chip that is just like oily potatoes and like processed like fried potatoes, and so it's very carb heavy, and then you have a bit of a come down afterwards because it's quite heavy in your stomach, it's quite oily, and you get nothing out of them. Whereas like at least with a cheeseburger, there's like some protein in there's obviously the carbs from the bun, it's like balanced enough, whereas like chips are like just straight oily carbs. So I like an actual chip hater for myself, and I'm like, I will not ever just go out of my way to eat chips unless I've like paired it with something. And then Frango's, for example, and this is like the ultimate hack, I will eat the burger first and then eat the chips. My partner eats the chips first. I'm like, why are you filling up on the chips and like the carbs, and like you're going to eat all the chips. You set yourself up to eat all the chips to get to the burger. Whereas I will eat the whole burger and I get the 2-patty one. So then I've got like 40 grams of protein. So I'm already getting really full before I've started the chips. So then I don't eat all the chips. And it's not like me stopping myself from eating chips. I physically cannot eat all the chips because I prioritize that. And it's like where you you eat your veggies first and you leave the bad meals for last. You eat your veggies first and you leave the good meal for last because you don't want to end on a bad meal with the veggies. That is literally me. But I'm like, I'm not prioritizing eating chips that have no nutritional value like at all, really. You know what I mean? In saying that, I obviously still eat the chips. So I'm not saying don't eat fucking chips, but I'm saying like, let's get it together and have a bit more balance so that we feel really educated and like this is freeing. It is freeing seeing food like that because you're like, cool, I'm still going to have it, but I'm just not going to binge on all the chips first and then like not even want to eat the burger. Like it's so freeing being able to view food like this. And I wasted so many years overcomplicating food. When I first started my weight loss journey, I literally would eat like no breakfast or like something shitty for breakfast, like a piece of toast, which again, I feel like, why do I have to disclaimer everything? You either know me or you don't. You know that it's fine, you can eat toast, but like we need something more with that, as I just said, with some protein. And then I would eat like nothing, and then I'd have a protein bar that I didn't even like and it tasted like shit, and I would eat like half of it, and then I felt so tired and so lethargic and exhausted, and I'd be like lying in bed because I had no energy to do anything because I was barely eating anything. So really just having this empowered stance and viewing food as fuel so you don't waste years overcomplicating it and worrying about it all. And like, don't even get me started on eating meals out. I know I just briefly touched with Frango's, but so many women think they can't have a date night with their partner because they're eating off track. But reality is like, a lot of the meals out, like as long as we're not talking like, just constant takeaway, but if you're going to a restaurant to eat like a meal, you are going to still be eating a really decent balanced meal. Again, I feel like they always flog the hot chips. with everything. But if you're getting like a steak, for example, it's the same concept. You're going to eat the steak first, then the chips, not the chips first. You know, that's like the ultimate hack with it all. And then if you eat all the chips still, that is okay and fine. Like, obviously you're just hungry, but we want to have that freedom stance. We want to be able to go to date night and enjoy date night and not feel restricted. We want to be able to spend time with our partner and not stress about calories, but really just looking at it as a balanced plate and being like, yeah, this is going to make me feel really good, because there's nothing worse than going to a meal and feeling sick after. That was me recently. I got a like creamy, this is why obviously it was creamy, boscaiola. So yum, so good. I took it home in a container because I could not eat it all. We also had cheesy garlic bread before that. So my stomach was just like, girl, this is a lot of oil and cheese and everything at once. Like, this is a lot to handle. And I felt sick, and there's nothing worse than feeling sick after. And that isn't a balanced meal. Oh no, I actually paid to add chicken in, but it was very minimal, I would say. So it was kind of balanced, but it wouldn't be if I didn't add the chicken in, right? So just being really strategic when we're going to events, because you don't actually have to miss out on birthdays, dinners, date nights. It's just being strategic with your choices. And I know it's overwhelming, but I'm hoping this gives you a bit more of like perspective around it all, because these are really like the basics of nutrition that I wish I knew earlier, that make fat loss a lot easier and make sticking to your diet, quote unquote, so much easier. And it's just, why also is eating healthy considered a diet? Can we just actually eat good and not consider it a diet? Girls that I see struggling the most to lose weight, it's because when you're not in a deficit and you're not dieting, you are flogging the Ben & Jerry's, eating out every meal, constant like sweet treats. And then when you're in the diet, you're cutting that all out, and that's making it so hard to stick to. Why can't we actually just eat healthy and clean 80% of the time, have those foods sometimes 20% of the time, and then it doesn't feel hard to go on a diet because you stick to your regular meals? Very much the same. That is the ultimate hack to losing weight, sticking to your regular meals and changing the portions rather than going so flip-flop and balls to the wall on each side. That's where the cravings come from. You're missing Ben & Jerry's because you had it so often before your deficit. Couldn't we just add it in as sometimes foods? Did we need to have it that often? That's why you always feel like you're off track and restarting, because we've gone from one extreme to a different extreme. At the end of the day, the best way to tell right now if your nutrition is off is how are you actually feeling. I just want you to do a self-audit. How are you feeling day to day? Do you have low energy? Do you have brain fog? Do you have a lack of motivation? Do you feel like you get very irritated? You're very flat and reactive and emotional? If all of that is true, or you had at least more than half of those symptoms, depending, of course, on what's going on in your life, if you're feeling really stressed about other things, but I'm going to say it comes down to your nutrition, because what we eat is how we feel. I love saying eat shit, feel shit, because it is so true. If we are stuck in a cycle right now of constantly binging the cupboard, eating shit every single day, feeling shit about things, we are going to feel shit mentally. Then it stems out. We lose our routine, we lose our structure, we lose our confidence. So it's like really being on top of like, how am I actually feeling right now? Audit that, analyze that, and understand where you might be overeating, undereating, restricting, where you might be caught in but I'm eating really healthy cycle, and then going from there. Start small though. Let's just start with like, let's look at how our plate is looking like, and can we just commit to the boring basic shit every single day? Don't get caught up in the new supplements, the new trends, new rules of dieting and conflicting advice online, because it's all a lot. It's just the bigger picture of how can we show up day to day, having confidence in the food we're eating that are actually making us feel good, have energy, not be low moods. You know, that's actually like the number one thing that I get in my inquiry forms, really low energy moods, really irritable, like struggling with even getting out of bed. That is not normal. That is not normal, and that is not how we should be living, especially if we're in our mid-20s, early 30s. We should not be living that way. No. Life is too short. How many more years are you going to waste feeling this way? How many more years are you going to spend every single day rolling out of bed, hating life, feeling exhausted, feeling emotional? No. Let's get on top of it. And that is a wrap on another episode of Doing It Anyway. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love for you to rate it 5 stars, share it with your friends, share it on your stories. And if you have any feedback, I would love to hear it. Please shoot me a DM on Instagram. All my links are below. See you in the next episode.